Could your people skills use a boost? Do you lack some social confidence? Do you struggle when it comes to talking to strangers? Today I want to talk about how to talk to anyone, and I'm going to base this conversation on the book by Leil Lowndes, How to Talk to Anyone. I'm going to share what my top takeaways are from the book, so grab a cup of tea and let's dive into it. The book How to Talk to Anyone was actually published in 1999, so it is 25 years old. But I only read it for the first time just recently, and I absolutely loved it straight away. I was reading it in one morning that I was catching up with a good friend, and I said to her that it was already the best 50 pages of any book that I had read in a long time. It uses really interesting storytelling and packaging of ideas to articulate the points made in a really memorable way. Charisma seems to often be this elusive trait that is only naturally reserved for some people. But for the rest of us, a book like How to Talk to Anyone helps to show you how communication techniques of charismatic people, or as Lowndes describes them, big winners, can actually also be learned. So maybe by the time you are tuning into this episode, you have personally or professionally a networking or event season coming up. Maybe depending on where you are starting a new school year. Maybe it is just a start of a new season in your life. Maybe a new job, maybe you've moved to a new place, or maybe it's just a new chapter for whatever reason. But the techniques that I'm going to share with you today in this episode is going to help you to make connections with people and to hopefully build your charisma so that you can establish more long-term relationships. Favorite takeaway number one from How to Talk to Anyone is the flooding smile. The book starts off really strong with this idea of a flooding smile being the first technique that Lowndes shares. And this idea of smiling isn't necessarily a new concept. We're generally told to smile when engaging with people in a more generic way, but this can also be quite cliche advice. The way that How to Talk to Anyone positions it, though, is that big winners understand that they need to actually fine-tune their smile. So the book almost feels like the smile coaching that you maybe didn't even realize that you needed. Women who are slower to smile in their corporate roles come across as more credible. So they fine-tune this to work to their advantage. And this is where the idea of a flooding smile comes in. If we just focus on smiling all of the time, this can look like we have a grin just pasted onto our face, and this can come across as insincere. If we are already smiling when someone approaches us, for example, then it doesn't actually necessarily look like that person made us feel any more special. When you adopt this idea of a flooding smile, even if it is only just a millisecond of a pause, you allow your smile to start to engulf your face. And a flooding smile is designed to feel like a warm wave that is washing over the recipient of your smile. That you're not just there to smile at anyone who comes into your line of sight, that you are actually enjoying that person's company in particular. Lowndes says big winners know their smile is one of their most lethal weapons, so they fine-tuned it for maximum impact. My favorite takeaway, number two, from How to Talk to Anyone is sticky eyes. Now, your smile is not your only potentially lethal weapon when it comes to your charisma. You also have the use of your eyes. Lowndes says your eyes are personal grenades that have the power to detonate people's emotions. That is a really big call for the power of your eyes. But big winners don't actually just use this cliche advice of eye contact in a generic way, because they understand that in certain situations, eye contact can be quite intimidating for that recipient, or it can actually be entirely inappropriate or disrespectful, as it is in some cultures. In some cultures, it's potentially even seen as threatening. So, what big winners have mastered is how they use their eye contact more deliberately in the right context. And this idea of sticky eyes is about using your eye contact as though it is like sticky toffee. For example, when someone is speaking, you are glued to what they are saying. And when they stop speaking, you don't immediately just move your eye contact to the next person that starts talking. Like a warm toffee, you slowly peel away your eye contact from that person. Now, of course, you have to use this cautiously and make sure that it is appropriate in the scenario that you are using this sort of eye contact with. Our university research has shown that the more eye contact, the more positive feelings. Our body has a biological response to eye contact. A heartfelt gaze can actually have an impact on our heart rate. And when we receive a heartfelt gaze, this can also create an adrenaline-like substance that shoots through our veins, through our body. My third favorite takeaway from how to talk to anyone is the big baby pivot. Have you had the experience of having a toddler or a young child come up to you and want your attention? Now, most people understand that you need to give that child's attention your focus. They are your priority. You put that child's needs above yours. But when it comes to engaging with adults, we can sometimes forget this. When we engage with adults, this is where the idea of the power of a big baby pivot can come in to be really handy for developing your charisma. A big baby pivot encourages you to fully turn your body towards that person, to give them your full attention, because you can use your body to scream to that person that I think that you are very, very special. My favorite takeaway, number 4, from how to talk to anyone is to always wear a what's it. Have you ever had the experience of being in a room hoping that that gorgeous guy or that gorgeous girl will come over and talk to you? Or perhaps you're at a networking event and you hope that other people will come to speak to you. This is where the idea of wearing a what's it can come in really handy. Now, you're probably thinking, what is a what's it? And a what's it is a visual prop, such as an interesting purse or an interesting tie, that is going to help other people to have a reason to talk to you. It gives them an opening to start a conversation. It's an easy opening for them to create a conversation with you. By wearing a what's it, you'll encourage more people to speak to you. And you can make this as subtle or as overt as your personality wants to be or as the situation calls for. But at least you'll make it easier for people to start a conversation with you. My favorite takeaway, number 5, from how to talk to anyone is the swiveling spotlight. There are few things that are more alluring than someone who isn't trying to sell themselves, someone who allows their accomplishments to speak for them, or perhaps allows other people to share their accomplishments for them. When you think about a conversation that is happening between you and another person, imagine that there is a spotlight above you. And whenever you are speaking, the spotlight is on you. But whenever the other person is speaking, the spotlight is on them. So the idea of a swiveling spotlight is to, as much as possible, keep the spotlight on the other person. Keep them shining. While they are spending that time talking about themselves and what is important to them, they most likely won't actually realize that you haven't contributed a lot to the conversation, that you haven't shared a lot about yourself. But they will still find the conversation engaging, because generally we are interested in people that are interested in us. So as much as possible, try and keep that spotlight on the other person. My favorite takeaway, number 6, from how to talk to anyone is, what do you do not? This is the crass question that the majority of people don't actually realize is a crass question, but the big winners do. And by not asking this question, the big winners can come across as more principled than the people that do ask this question. That is because by not asking this question, you aren't reducing people down to their job or to the work that they do. We tend to want to categorize people, to put them into boxes, to label them. We want to understand where they fit in society. That is why we subconsciously ask people this question. But by doing this, we can not only come across as a ruthless networker who needs to understand how you can gain from that person's position, but you also can come across as being someone who is not actually enjoying that person's conversation for what it is. You are killing the conversation by asking them what they do instead of enjoying their personality. What I love about the book How to Talk to Anyone is that it goes one step further in describing why this is a problematic or insensitive question. For example, you might be asking this question to someone who has recently lost their job, who for whatever reason is no longer doing the work that they would normally be doing. You might be asking the question to someone who doesn't actually like to talk about what it is that they do. Or maybe they do something that they feel is quite obscure and they don't like to have to talk about it in more detail to someone who may not understand it. You might also be asking this question to someone who has prioritized being a full-time parent. So by asking them this question, you are belittling the commitments that they have chosen to make. You may also be asking this question to someone who actually does not work at all because they do not need to. Maybe they earned a lot of money early in their career or their working life and they don't have to work now at all. Maybe for whatever reason, they are well off enough to not have to work a 9 to 5 like most people. So instead of what How to Talk to Anyone describes as a cruel corporate question, substitute this question for the question, how do you spend your time? This is a more gracious way to allow that person to take that conversation wherever they want it to go. My favorite takeaway, number 7 from How to Talk to Anyone, is the nutshell resume. Now, in reality, most people are still going to ask you the question, what do you do? So you may as well be prepared for when it comes up. The nutshell resume is the idea of taking what would normally be your CV and coming up with your own verbal version of it. So how can you break this down as simply as possible? But what I love about the nutshell resume in How to Talk to Anyone is that it really focuses on this idea of personalizing your response based on who you are talking to. For example, when you are applying for a job, you generally don't send a generic resume or a generic cover letter to whoever it is that you are trying to engage with. You will tailor it to suit that person. And what the nutshell resume proposes in How to Talk to Anyone is to do the same for the person that you are speaking to. For example, if you are a business person speaking to another business person, then tailor your response to be suited to that person. Or if you are a business owner and you meet someone who reflects some of the clientele that you may have, then tailor your response to reflect how that person could be interested in what you do. But you want to make sure that you are doing this without trying to exploit the conversations for your own opportunities. It's simply a way to allow that person to connect with aspects that they may understand. My favorite takeaway, number 8, from How to Talk to Anyone is never be naked, thank you. This one is really easy to remember. It is to never let your thank you stand naked and alone. We often use the words thank you so often and we hear it so often that we can become really desensitized to the power of them. So make sure that you are personalizing your thank yous to the situation. And a really simple rule that you can follow is to make sure that there is a 4 on the end of all of your thank yous and to fill in the rest of that sentence. Thank you for your help with this project. Thank you for dinner. Thank you for your time. This is a way to make that person feel like you are genuine in your gratitude for whatever it is that you are thanking them for. My favorite takeaway, number 9, from how to talk to anyone is to anatomically correct emphasizes. We experience the world through our senses, but our senses also have preferences. Neurolinguistics programming, or NLP, proposes that we have a dominant sense that we experience the world through. And this isn't necessarily about one sense being physically stronger than others. It is about our preferences. For example, do you say that something looks good or that something sounds good? When you say that something looks good, that implies that you experience the world most dominantly through the perception of sight, as opposed to saying that something sounds good, so you experience it more through your auditory senses. Or you might say that you feel it in the air, that you taste it in the air, that you smell it in the air. When you are in conversation with someone, pinpoint what their most dominant preferred sense is. It'll be really easy to start to spot what these words are. Then you want to reflect this back in your language to them. This will allow you to connect on a deeper level because you are speaking the language that they prefer. You are speaking through the senses that they prefer experiencing. My favorite takeaway, number 10, from how to talk to anyone is to rubberneck the room. When you enter a room, do you very quickly look for that person or the group of people that you might already know? Or do you quickly make a beeline for the bar or the buffet? Most of us try and circumvent that horror of those few moments where we may look like we are alone, but not the stars. The stars make an entrance, and they make an entrance slowly. This is something that in every scenario, the big winners understand. So the next time that you arrive at whatever it is that you are attending, stop, pause, and survey the situation. This will be your opportunity for your own movie star moment. It was really hard for me to narrow down what my top favorite tips were from how to talk to anyone because all 92 tips were honestly written in such an engaging way. So I'd really encourage you to read the book and to learn what the other tips are. I really love how Lowndes describes why practicing your people skills at absolutely every opportunity is so important. And she says that it may not be that next interaction that you have is going to necessarily be your future best friend or your future business partner or your future most important business contact, maybe even the future love of your life. But one day it will be. So when you practice your people skills in absolutely every scenario, then you will be prepared to have charisma when that moment does come. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.